Hello class, today we're going to go over a brief introduction to the ArcMap interface. We'll go over making maps and also working with map layers, so data layers, and the container. ArcMap is part of the ArcGIS platform. We will primarily be working with ArcMap and ArcCatalog, which is 2D spatial analysis. Later in the semester, we will have a few exercises in the ArcScene and ArcGlobe, which is 3D spatial analysis. Example of 3D spatial analysis is terrain analysis, or perhaps it's some kind of line of sight analysis, which is used a lot in urban planning and development, and also security. For instance, if every time the president comes to visit somewhere, he does have in his security team a team of GIS analysts that will identify vulnerability spots throughout anywhere where the president will be. The security team will identify vulnerability spots. So locations where there should be perhaps more eyes on the ground due to blind spots, potential risks for the president's visit. So that's just an example. ArcMap documents often are referred to as maps or MXD files. ArcMap documents have a .mxd extension, which is why they're referred to MXD files. It is a way to illustrate data. So this document here is a map of the United States with all of the major cities within the United States. The states have a black outline with a pale yellow infill or a fill color. And the cities are red dots with a black outline. That's basically what the ArcMap document is doing here for you. It is just displaying information in a different way. It is not storing information. It's only saving your layers' colors and symbology. So the way your layers look, the colors and the shapes that represent point data, that is called symbology. So this is a word that you will be using a lot in the semester. So states are polygons, and the cities can be polygons, but in this scale, they're represented as point feature. Since the map document is a way to save your layer colors and symbology, the actual data, the source of the information that is being displayed in an ArcMap document, is saved in what is called a geodatabase. Geodatabase is a container used to hold a collection of data sets. So it can hold GIS features, so vector data such as points, lines, polygons. It can store tables. There are attribute tables. So those are the tables that are attached to your feature. So for instance, if you have the city data in this ArcGIS, the feature in this file geodatabase, the feature itself is a point feature. But for each point, there is information in an attribute table, which is also in that geodatabase about that city. So it'll have the city's name, perhaps the population, perhaps it'll have the total area, land area of that city. The other table that type of table that we'll be working with are census tables. Census tables are pretty much Excel spreadsheets that we can input into a geodatabase and join with our feature class layers. So census data, so for instance, if you live in a neighborhood, census refers to that neighborhood as a block. That block, your neighborhood block, has a unique identifier. A unique identifier meaning a number that represents that block that no other neighborhood has that same number. So it's a unique number to that block. And so if you have a spreadsheet from census that has information about that block, such as the population or how many housing units are in that block, you can use the unique identifier in your feature class and the unique identifier in your census table to join those layers together. and we'll get into that a little later. And you also can contain raster data sets. So raster data is, again, a grid of square cells. Each cell represents something about the geography. So if it is a digital terrain model raster, each cell would represent a height value. Or if it's aerial photography, so just imagery, each cell would represent an RGB value, a color value. Before we get further into the ArcMap interface, this is something that's very important, and that is data management. In this course, you will need to have an external hard drive. You will have to store all of your work in an external hard drive, and I strongly recommend that you are consistently backing up your external hard drive somewhere, such as Lightning or perhaps a Dropbox account if you have one. Again, I cannot stress enough the importance of backing up your external hard drives. If your external hard drives becomes damaged in any way, and it will happen, external hard drives will become damaged, then you are required to have a backup of your work. It is not an acceptable excuse that you are not acceptable. Flash drives are they break very often. They're slow. They don't process the data as quickly as an external hard drive does, and so they're just not allowed. If you choose to use a flash drive anyway, and for any reason you lose your work due to that, that is your responsibility, and it's not excusable. So just please keep that in mind. You will need an external hard drive for this class. So let's begin. Let's start with using and making maps. So this is the interface. If you open ArcMap, go to Start, Programs, type in ArcMap, and it should come up as one of the programs that are available, and select ArcMap to open it. That's how you start ArcMap. This is an example of an ArcMap document that has information, a map already laid out. This is the Pittsburgh. And it is all of the census tracts. We'll get into what a census tract is, and also for each census tract, how many crimes occurred in a certain period. So crime incidents per census tracts. The crime incidents, which are the red dots on this map, are overlaid on a income layer. So we collected information about what is the percentage of the population that is living in poverty, or a number of people in that in each census tract that is living in poverty, as there is a correlation of crime and poverty. So let's just look at this interface for a second. Our main menu, File, Edit, is here. It's the File, Edit, View, Bookmarks, and so forth. That is basically where you can do some pretty basic things, such as save your map and so forth, and you'll get into that a lot, so you'll become accustomed to using that. The standard toolbar, that is where you can also just save something, open another document. This little icon here, there's a little arrow next to it, is how you can add data to your map. This window here is your scale window, so if you're trying to create a map to scale that you intend to print out and use for perhaps some kind of landscape architecture assignment, then you could set your scale here. And the layout toolbar, you can look at your data in two different ways. So this is your map view area, right? So right now we're looking at a layout view, and you can click this tiny little icon here to go into data view. Data view basically means you're just looking at the data itself. Layout view means you're looking at how you would lay it out on a page. So you have a title, you have scales. That's if you're going to actually create an output like a PDF of the map you're working on. So those are the two views that you can be working on. If you are in layout view, then you will have a layout toolbar here that you can choose to navigate. You can zoom in to the actual layout without zooming in and out of the data, meaning your scale will stay the same. Here on the right is the Arc catalog window. This is where the data is actually stored. So the symbology the colors and the way that the map is represented here is stored in this map document, and the data is stored in the Arc Catalog window. The table of contents can be displayed in various ways. The most common way that we can display it is list by drawing order or list by source. Right now you're looking at the data as a list by source, meaning show me what source this data is in. List by drawing order will just show you what order the data is in. So for instance, your point layer, the crime incidents per census tract, is on top of the polygon layer, and that's the order that it's in. If you were to drag this polygon layer above your point layer, and you would have to be in list by drawing order to do that, then you wouldn't see your points anymore. They would be behind your polygon layer. So that's another important thing to remember. Your drawing order should be that points are always on the top and lines are always above polygons. The identity or identify results window it's just a tool that's available to you. So you can get to that. You can access that tool by clicking the I in the blue circle here. So if you click that I and then you click on a census tract, then a pop-up window will show up and give you all the information that you have in the attribute table of that census. Okay, so let's play around a little bit in ArcMap. Open up your ArcMap on your computer. If you don't have ArcMap open in front of you, just follow along and take notes, and you can do this on your own later when you have ArcMap. But let's open up ArcMap, and before we open up ArcMap, let's download the data and uncompress the folder that I sent to you. You should have received a compressed folder titled Assignment Number 1. This is a compressed folder, meaning you will not be able to use this data until you uncompress it. Right-click the folder, select Extract All, choose the location that you want the data to go in. I recommend that in your external hard drive. So for you, this would just be the drive number, and then in the root of that drive, create a GIS folder. In that GIS folder, create a data folder. In that data folder, create, and that's where you will save the data into. So you should have GIS folder in your external hard drive. Inside GIS, you should have data. And so I'm going to extract it to that data folder. Now you have an uncompressed version. So inside this folder, these are all the components of a shapefile. So for instance, the census tract shapefile consists of many other files and programs that they all have a job to do. So for instance, the PRJ, that's a projection. The main job of that little program folder is to make sure that your polygons are projected accurately on whatever map projection you have set up. And we'll get into that in a second. But what's most important to know is Windows Explorer does not speak GIS, and so you will not be working in this platform, right? This is just a folder that's holding data for now. You can never add data from a Windows Explorer window into an ArcMap document. The only way that you can add data into an ArcMap document is from ArcGIS or from the Arc Catalog window. So here is an ArcMap document open. I do not have my Arc Catalog window open. It would generally be open on the right side. So if this is what you see, there are two ways to open your Arc Catalog window. You can click on the Arc Catalog icon, and that will open the window. Or you can just go to Windows and click Arc Catalog. This window, the table of contents, is how your layers are displayed. And so if that closes, you can do the same thing. Go to Windows and Table of Contents, or click on the Table of Contents icon. So before you can add data to your ArcMap document, you have to have a connection to that folder. So to connect to a folder, you click the Connect to a Folder icon here. That's this little icon here, Connect to a Folder. A dialog window will pop up, and so you just navigate to where you have saved the uncompressed version of the data that I emailed you. So I've navigated to the folder that has my external hard drive that has my GIS folder in it. Inside that GIS folder, I have my data folder, and that is where my uncompressed version is. I do not recommend that you connect directly to the folder that is within another folder that you need. I recommend that you connect to GIS folder, meaning if you have a connection to this folder here, that means you also have a connection to all of these folders. If you were to connect directly to assignment, you would only have a connection to assignment number 1 and not maybe other folders that are within data or other folders that are within the GIS folder. So connect to the main GIS folder. Great. So if I make this a little wider here so that you can see, now I have a connection to my GIS folder. I only have data folder in here for now, but throughout the semester we'll be setting up many other folders. So here is the census tracts, which is a polygon that represents information about an area, demographic information about an area. And here is the crime point feature. So we have 2 vector layers, polygon layer and a point layer. And this is a census table that I downloaded from the census online. It's a kind of like an Excel spreadsheet table. We'll get into that later in the semester. So for now, I'll just give you the table for your first assignment. So those are the 3 layers that we have in our data folder for now. The easiest way to add data to your map is by simply dragging it into your ArcMap document. That's the easiest way to add data. You can also click on this icon here, Add Data. There's a little arrow next to it. You can select the Add Data button and navigate to where that data is. My favorite way is just to drag and drop. Okay, so there's all our data. Let's turn the crime layer off for now and make this window a little smaller. I can right-click a layer and select Zoom to Layer to get a better view of it. So that's how you open up ArcMap, connect to a folder, and add data. We can also look at a layer's attribute table. So this is a census tract that has a feature class attribute table attached to it. To open the attribute table, right-click the layer and select Open Attribute Table. So sometimes your attribute table will kind of open separately somewhere. I like to do what is called docking the table. When you dock the table, you just left-click the blue area here, and without releasing the mouse button, move it around until you see these arrows. When you hover over one of the arrows, it'll dock your table in a location. I like docking my tables on the bottom of my map. So let's look at all of the attributes that come with a census tract layer, a polygon that represents an area. So it tells us each tract comes already with a object ID. That's kind of an arbitrary number that's assigned to that polygon. Then we have a what kind of shape this is. This is a polygon. And then we get into these other numbers that represents the geography. So if you notice, GOID is kind of like a combination of a bunch of other numbers that you see here. So let's get into that. So a census tract is a boundary that represents an area, and each census tract has what is called a geocode. It's kind of like it's a way to have a unique identification number for a geographical boundary. Very important for people who are working with GIS. So geocodes are hierarchical, meaning there is a hierarchy with how the numbers are assigned. So we have the U.S. Within the U.S., we have states. Pennsylvania, the GeoID number for Pennsylvania as a state is 42. But if you're looking at a county level, say you're looking at Allegheny County, then that number is 003. So together with the Pittsburgh number, which is 61000, that area's GeoID would be 420036100. Same thing with census tracts. So let's just take a look at the different types that we have. So beginning with the largest layer is U.S., then we have state, county, and municipality level. That's what is called FIPS. These are political boundaries. We are going to work with statistical boundaries. So boundaries where the U.S. Census collects statistical data on. A census tract is the largest statistical boundary that you could have. Within a census tract, you may have several block groups, and within a block group, you have one block. A block is kind of like a neighborhood size. So a census tract block would have this as its unique identifier. And then you also have local government data. And these are legal boundaries. So if you own a house, that house is on a parcel, and that parcel has a unique identifier, which is a number. And you may know your parcel mostly as a street address, as your post office address. But if you have a parcel shapefile and information about that parcel in a spreadsheet, you can use this unique identifier to join that data. So this is the world in the U.S. In the U.S., we have the state of Pennsylvania. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have Allegheny County. So far, this, if you had a layer that represented all of the counties within Pennsylvania, Allegheny County would be 42003, right? Within Allegheny County, you have Pittsburgh, which is a municipality, and those are the actual. So let's look at a census tract within Allegheny County, or excuse me, within Pittsburgh. So it's kind of hard to tell here, but this is the outline of Pittsburgh, right? So everything that's in here is Pittsburgh. It's what you see highlighted here. To get you a little sense of context, this highlighted area is what is a census tract. So there are many census tracts within a municipality. Within that particular census tract, we have a block group, and here is a block group here within that census tract. And within that block group, we have several blocks. So here is a block here. So this is maybe a neighborhood. And every 10 years, the census collects information about the blocks and the neighborhoods, information such as population and housing units, as I mentioned before. So going back to your ArcMap document, we looked at the attribute table for my census tract layer. Now let's go to the list by source so that we can look at the census tract table, census table, excuse me. So this is a table that we downloaded from an online source. And if you right-click that table and select Open, we have some information about this table. What we have here is a GeoID representing the geography and information about poverty.